Hey guys, it's Vass here from Aussie RC Playground, and this is my review of the Team Associated Prolite 4x4 short course truck. This is a relatively new truck from Team Associated. It's part of their Qualifier series, and I believe they could actually be expanding their genre of cars under this Qualifier banner into, buggies and road cars and so forth. So, make sure you check out their website. There's more than likely going to be having other cars other than just the short course truck. Now, this particular one, I bought it from Tower Hobbies, owes me a grand total of about $370 including postage, and comes completely ready to run. Not only do you get the truck and the remote, but they also give you a 7-cell nickel metal hydrate pack. This is a 3000 milliamp hour with things connectors already on there. All you need to do is get your own charger because they do not supply you with one. The remote is actually not a bad little unit at all. I was actually pretty pleased with the performance of the remote and also the range that I got out of it. Even though it doesn't have any big antennas or anything like that, it's just got this little shark fin thing going on there. But it gave me plenty of range and pretty good steering on there as well. Overall, I have to say it's a pretty good unit. A lot of adjustability and your standard sort of features on the back there, your steering, dual rates and all that type of stuff. So very happy with it. Runs on 6 AA's, and the AA's that they actually use, or the way that you put them in, they've got this tray which usually stays permanently attached to the remote, but I've taken it out for the purpose of the review just to show you that if you do want to, you can get a rechargeable pack that plugs into that remote, and that'll save you from having to buy AA's all the time. So a nice little feature there, I think, with the remote. Now, moving on to the truck itself, we're going to start with some of the good things that I like about the truck, and then we'll move on to the not so good things. Now, the good thing that I like about this truck, and we'll start with the body, is the body's actually been very, very durable. It's definitely copped a fair beating, but other than a few scratches and a couple of small dents, there's no cracks, there's no real big signs of weaknesses. I'm actually pretty impressed with the durability of the body, so that's probably a keeper in that regard. Another thing I like about the truck, just moving on to the inside of it, battery tray is actually pretty good. Has a very simple strap to access your battery, which just holds down with a simple body pin. It is quite long, so you are going to need some foam packing to be able to accommodate the size of battery that you're going to be using on there. But it's got enough width there to accommodate a lot of different size battery packs, and the strap doesn't actually interfere with a lot of cables or anything like that, so very easy to use, quite flexible in the way that you can put different size packs in there. So I'm pretty impressed with that. The only concern I have is if you do have a battery that's a little bit thinner than normal, there's actually quite a large opening on the front, on the side here, and if the battery is too thin, it might end up sliding out through the side of the tray, because there's really nothing other than just a small lip that's basically part of the chassis. There's nothing there to hold the battery in, so just keep an eye out on that. You may need some extra packing or something like that to make sure the battery doesn't slide out. Moving on to the steering servo. Steering servo has actually been pretty good. No reason for swapping it over. Hasn't failed on me, hasn't given me any dramas. Plenty torque, speed, all of that. It's fine, the steering servo is fine. Receiver box is completely watertight, so your receiver is going to stay in there nice and safe, and it's not going to be susceptible to any debris or water or anything like that. You'll be fine with your receiver. But to be honest with you, the best thing about this truck by a long way has to be the motor and ESC combo they've used here. This is a 3500 kV Reedy motor. It's a brilliant motor, really powerful. On 2S, excuse me, on 2S the truck has plenty of power, and I think will be fine for most people to just drive around on 2S. But if you really want to impress, throw a 3S pack in here, and I think you'll find that this thing has some incredible speed. I clocked it at just over 70 kilometers an hour, which I think is fantastic for a ready-to-run vehicle. So very impressed with the motor in ESC, and I think you will be too. Now, that's pretty much all I got as far as good things for the car. Now we're going to move on to some of the not so good things, and I'm going to bring the body back because there's something else about the body that I want to mention. Excuse me, I've got a bit of an itchy throat. With the body, although it is very durable, and I'm quite happy in that regard, it's actually very badly aerodynamically designed, and I'll show you. Probably your best option here is to just see it straight on. You can see these great big massive fenders that they've got going on here. Now the front one catches a lot of air just as you're driving in a straight line, just as you're driving around. It actually catches a lot of air. So there's these fenders right behind the wheels here, the tires, are there just catching a whole bunch of air. And you're going to find that when you're doing some jumps with this, the car is just going to hover in the air, and it's going to either nosedive or go back. It doesn't glide through the air very well at all. So not impressed with the body as far as aerodynamics go. I think it's a pretty poor design. The back fenders as well are also very, very wide. Again, this also catches a fair bit of air as you're gliding through the air. And I found the body to be more of a hindrance on the performance on the truck than anything else. And I'm not really impressed with how they've designed it. So there are plenty of other aftermarket bodies out there, and I strongly recommend you probably get your hands on one of those. Alternatively, what you can do is actually cut some holes and some slots in the body, as long as you don't jeopardize the integrity of it and the strength. You can cut some extra holes in here to allow some airflow, and you might be able to get some of that that problem out of the way. But honestly, I'll probably just be more inclined to just replacing it. Another thing that I'm going to pick on as well is the body actually wasn't trimmed properly here at the front, and it was constantly hitting the front bumper of the truck to the point where when you put the body on, the bonnet would actually kink upwards, so it would kick up like that. And there was a lot of, just as you're driving straight, we're just catching more air that way. So I had to trim it and cut it to stop it from hitting that bumper. And there's actually a few marks on there that I know you can't see, but there's actually a few marks on there from the body constantly hitting that front bumper. So that's probably only a minor thing, but something that I think might be worth pointing out. The body posts, if anyone has seen the running videos of this truck that I've had, that I've posted up, you'll know that I've broken a couple of body posts. This is the latest one that I broke, just one of them on the back left, snapped off. And I have to say that the body posts are very poorly designed. They are not strong at all. The plastic they use is quite brittle and doesn't really add any strength to the body posts at all. And at the end of the day, if you get this and you land on the roof, you're going to break your body posts. I'm 100% guarantee it. You're going to snap them. The other thing that's really annoying is the posts themselves are not adjustable in height. So what happens is, if you want to lower the truck, the body will come with it and you can't raise it back up again. So you're going to find that the body will actually rub on the wheels and tires. So pretty poorly designed, and I think they've cut a couple of corners here. I'm not impressed with what Team Associated have done with the body posts. This, by default, body posts should be done a lot stronger than this, and they should be adjustable. Full stop, no excuses. Tires, I have to say that the tires are actually not bad. I don't think they're great, but they are not bad. I found them to be okay in certain terrains, but in other terrains they failed miserably, such as loose dirt or gravel. I wasn't too impressed with them there. But on things like driving on the road or on more compact surfaces, or even just grass and stuff like that, they actually work pretty well. So they're a bit more specific in the terrain that they actually work on. They are a fairly soft compound, and they've been pretty durable. I've done several speed tests with this car. I've taken it quite a few times off road, and the tires are still holding up okay. Definitely showing some heavy signs of wear, but there's still plenty of tread here. Should be able to do at least another dozen packs or so. So for me, the tires are a bit iffy. I'm not 100% one way or the other. They're kind of, they're all right. So depending on what you want to do, you might either want to keep them, or you might be looking at upgrading them pretty much straight away. So I'll leave that to you. The suspension layout. Suspension on this truck, I have to say, when I took it out of the box, was extremely poor. My first test run with this car was on tarmac, and as soon as I started driving it, I realized straight away that the suspension was very poorly set out of the box. And I, as soon as I finished doing that initial test, I took the truck in and introduced some preload spacers onto the shocks, and the truck started to perform a little bit better. It still was nowhere near what it should be, but the suspension livened up it a little bit, and I could actually feel a bit more responsiveness on the truck when the steering. So I was starting to see a little bit of an improvement, but still nowhere near as what it should be. Still, I continued with the tests that I had to do that day, and I put a 3S pack into this truck. And I have to say that this thing is an absolute handful on 3S. I mean, as I said, the motor and ESC on this truck are phenomenal. They are fantastic. But you know, if you haven't got your suspension set up properly and you haven't got some of the things that you need to really tune on this truck properly before you start running it on at 70 kilometers an hour, I strongly suggest don't run it on 3S until you fixed it, because honestly, you're going to find yourself in all sorts of trouble trying to control this thing on a 3S live post. So that's my recommendation, is to fix your suspension. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking about just introducing some preload spacers and maybe reposition your shocks. I'm talking taking the shocks out of the truck, rebuild them, like strip them down, take the oil that they've got in them, which I don't even know if it's oil, it's probably like olive oil or something. It's really bad. Take that out. Use 40 weight oil. I found to be ideal. I've got 40 weight front and back, and that works perfectly fine. So some 40 weight oil. Spacers, you are going to need some spacers. How you set it up, I'll leave that up to you. But spacers you're going to need, and your suspension layout, how you're going to mount the shocks. This is the best way that I've come to do it, is on the shock towers, mount your shocks on the outermost holes. All right, so holes furthest out. On the A-arms, mount the shocks on the innermost holes on the A-arms, because there's actually 4 to choose from there. So on the innermost in the rear, and on the front A-arm, second one out from the center. So not the very first one, the second one out. So that to me I found to be ideal. The truck sits relatively level, probably tilts forward just a smidge, and that is ideal because when you do put the truck under throttle, it tends to level out. And also this way the truck is off the ground a little bit, which means the body is off the tires, which is ideal for bashing. The way that I drive it, it drives reasonably well on tarmac and just out in the front in the road or whatever. But if you want to take it off the road and do a few jumps with it, this setup is perfect. There's plenty of dampness here. That the truck just sits really nice. The suspension is actually really plush now. It's fine the way it is now. It's fine, but there are a few other things that I think you need to know before you think that this is all fixed up. First thing is your toe. You are going to need to check this. Now, when I first got this truck, the front wheels were actually pointing inwards a bit too much, and I didn't realize this until much later on in my testing. And it was most evident when I actually took the truck out for a speed test to see how fast it'll go. The truck was just veering off all over the place. It was going out, just steering, doing its own thing. And it was a massive handful to control. I was not impressed with the way that it handled trying to keep it in a straight line. It was not impressing me at all. But when I brought it back and had another look at it, I found that the wheels were turned in a little bit too much. So I straightened them out, and if anything, I've actually got them pointing out just a little bit. And went back out there and did another run. Now, when I went back the second time, I didn't take the speed gun because I already knew how fast the truck was. All I wanted to do was make sure that I could actually drive the thing in a straight line. And it was amazing how your toe can affect the steering of the truck so much. And I guess this goes for all cars. But if you don't get that checked out, you're going to find that the car is going to behave rather erratically as you're trying to go in a straight line. So having fixed my toe, the truck drove beautifully straight. I can pretty much smash the throttle straight off the line and the truck will go straight, where before I had to be very careful about how I squeeze the trigger to try and get it up to speed. Another thing that is worth pointing out is the slack that this has got. You can see there just how much slack there is in the front steering. Now, for anyone wanting to get this truck for racing, you're going to be spending some time on the workbench trying to fix that, because that is something that's not easily fixed. You can be done, and there are ways that you can do it. I'm sure that you know, if you're into racing, you'll be able to work out what those things are. But it definitely is going to require maybe a little bit of spending money and a lot of time on the workbench to try and get this fixed up, because that is, to me, that is unacceptable from Team Associated on a truck that costs nearly $400. So that's pretty poor effort. It shouldn't come like that at all. That is very, very disappointing. Lastly, one of the things that happened to me with this particular truck, and I don't know if this is going to happen to other people, but it happened to me, so it's, you know, if it's happened once, it's bound to happen again. The pinion gear was not meshed correctly with the spur gear, and I didn't notice this. You know, you sort of invest a bit of trust in the manufacturer, especially when it's Team Associated, that they've done a half decent job of putting everything together correctly. So, you know, I think it was my third battery pack. I had already done some initial testing with the truck, and I went back to my testing grounds to test out a new set of tires, which are currently on the off, these ones here. Now, I didn't upload the video of this particular footage because it was so short, and the reason for that was because the pinion gear basically chewed out the spur. It just chewed it to bits. And it really chewed it about halfway down the teeth of the spur. You know, I started testing the truck. I ran it for maybe 3 minutes at the most, and before I knew it, you know, you could hear the motor just spinning freely, and that's usually an indication that either the pinion has come loose or the spur gear has been chewed up. And unfortunately, that led me to another major problem that I found with this truck, and that is how difficult it is to work on this particular vehicle. Now, I've worked on a lot of cars. I've built cars from scratch, and I've had to do maintenance on a variety of different scales and different brands. This particular one here is an absolute nightmare to work on. I'm not at all impressed at the design and the ingenuity that went into this car. This is very, very difficult to work on, an absolute pain. And to top it off, the instruction manual that Team Associated provide with this truck is not of the highest quality. It's very nicely illustrated and printed very, very well. However, the detail within is very poor, very vague, and it certainly did not give me the information that I needed to be able to put this thing back together, because it was apart for such a long time. And basically, I'm going to run you through the story very quickly. The spur gear got chewed, so I ripped apart the car to try and get the spur gear out. So your whole rear diff assembly needs to come out. This entire top brace here needs to come out. You need to take your motor mount and your motor out of the car, and then you can access your spur gear, which is on a clutch system. So you need to disassemble the clutch, and eventually you get the spur gear in your hand. Massive, lengthy process to get access to it, okay? Of course, when I went to order the part, and I also needed to order some body posts at the time, I couldn't get any parts. None of my local hobby shops stock the Prolite short course truck, and even though I had the part number to give to them for them to order from whatever supplier they use, the supplier didn't have the parts. The truck was relatively new on the market at the time, and no one had parts. Tried on the web, couldn't really find anything other than Tower Hobbies. Tower Hobbies had the picture of the part, they had the part number, they had a description, they had a price, they had a buy it now icon, but they had no stock. And unfortunately, it took them, I think, somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks to get the part into stock. And then I ordered it, and then it took me another 2 or 3 weeks before I got the part delivered to my house. So it took me a very long time to get the parts for this truck, hence the reason why it's taking me this long to get to the review stage. And that is just not good enough. I think personally, if Team Associated, or any brand, I'm not blaming Team Associated, any brand brings out a new truck, a new car, a new buggy, a new boat, new plane, doesn't matter what it is, you need to have spares. Now, I'm not saying you need to have every component of the car, but you need to have things that history would show would be a suitable replacement pretty much straight away. Bumpers, A-arms, body posts, little things that generally break when people are trying out their cars and having a bit of fun. So, you know, you're probably not going to need to, I don't know, have a spare for a servo mount, you know what I mean? Like, or a spare chassis plate, unless they're susceptible to breaking. But you wouldn't necessarily need a brand new chassis, but you might need some bumpers, you might need some arms, and etc. So no parts available, very, very bad. That to me is not good enough. I think, you know, when you're in this price point, when you're in a brand like Team Associated, that's not excusable. I'm not going to be backing down on that. They should have had parts available, and they should have designed some of the things in here a lot better. That's how I feel about it. Lastly, one of the things that you will find is that the chassis is quite flexible. You can twist this guy and bend it almost like you know, like a pretzel. It's really quite, it's not very rigid at all, and it hasn't impressed me at all. I think for a plastic tub chassis, I've seen better on cheaper trucks, and I've seen cheaper trucks with aluminium chassis. So for me, I can't rate this car very well because of its inherent flaws, its lack of proper ingenuity, its lack of part support. I'm not going to rate this thing very highly at all. I think the two best things that this car has got are by far the motor and ESC, and the remote is actually a pretty half decent unit as well. I'm not going to pick so much on the tyres. The steering servo is fine, it's ample. Battery tray is also good, you know, the way that they've designed that is not bad at all. But everything else I think on this truck is not worthy of my money again if I was to buy it. If somebody was to, you know, ask me to buy it again, I would say, oh, no way, I'm not doing it. The only thing I would buy out of this truck would be the motor and ESC, and that is pretty much how I feel about it. Overall score, I'm not giving this thing anything higher than a 5 out of 10, and that's really because the remote and the motor and the ESC, you know, that's probably the two best things that the truck has got, and that's pretty much it. If you think I'm being too harsh, or if you think I'm on the money and you've got one of these and you've got any questions or any queries, or if you like clarification on anything else, by all means, please post a comment down below. If you like this video, then hey, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, well, sorry, hit the thumbs down button. And if you want to stay in tune or in touch with everything else that I do on my channel, then by all means hit the subscribe button as well, and I would appreciate the support. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you guys next time.